the dog who wanted to fly. The first time Toby noticed the sky, he was small enough to fit inside a bicycle basket. He was all paws and questions, tan fur the color of toast, a black button nose, and ears that couldn't decide whether to stand up or flop down. He lived with a boy named Max, and Max's mom in a second-floor apartment that smelled like laundry and pancakes. Every morning, Toby sat on the windowsill and watched birds cut lines through the blue. They didn't flap all the time. Sometimes they just were, wings out, faces forward, riding something invisible. Toby pressed his nose to the glass and fogged it with a sigh. He didn't have wings, but he had legs that could fly down hallways and a tail that could helicopter when he was happy. It felt unfair that birds got to leave the ground and he didn't. The day it started, Max wheeled his bike out of the building and set the basket on the handlebars. "Ready, Captain?" Max asked. Toby jumped in and stood with his front paws on the rim. The street opened like a river, and when the bike pushed off, the wind held Toby's face like a friend. They glided past the bakery, the bus stop, the park. Toby's ears finally picked a side and flew behind him like flags. He tasted warm air and the edges of 1,000 smells. This seemed close to flying. Not quite, but close. At the park, Max parked and tossed a ball. Toby chased so hard his paws barely touched the grass. He leaped for the catch, and for one breath he was above things, above grass, above worry, above everything except joy. Then he landed and skidded and turned with a bark that sounded like the word again. That night, while Max did homework at the kitchen table, Toby climbed onto the windowsill and watched a pigeon float in the streetlight. His chest felt full and a little heavy, like a drawer you have to push with 2 hands. "I want to fly," he told the moon. The moon said nothing, which is what the moon usually says, but Toby felt heard anyway. The next morning, he started trying. He tried leaping off the end of the couch onto the rug with his front legs stretched wide. He tried jumping from the coffee table to the armchair while Max's mom yelped and then laughed and then said, "Okay, circus dog, ground time." He climbed onto the laundry basket and spread the sleeves of a t-shirt like wings, squinting at the window as if that would help. He tried running downhill at the park with his eyes half closed to feel the wind carry him. He tried jumping for higher sticks. He tried barking at his own shadow until it jumped too. Most of the time, gravity answered. Gravity was firm, but not unkind. It put him back where he started and asked him to try something else. One afternoon, while hunting crumbs under the park bench, Toby met a cat named Queenie. She belonged to a man who played chess in the shade and wore a hat like a small boat. Queenie was white, with a patch of black on her face that looked like a thoughtful thumbprint. She watched Toby perform a running leap that got him exactly 3 inches off the ground. "You're aiming at the wrong thing," she said, licking her paw. Toby blinked. "What do you mean?" "The sky is big," Queenie said. "So your idea of flying is too big." She flicked her tail. "Pick a smaller sky." Toby considered this and decided a small sky might be the space between the bench and the hedge. He crawled under, backed up, and leaped out. It felt like breaking through a curtain. He did it again and again until his tail started all the applause it could handle. The chess man moved a piece and chuckled. "We all want a shortcut," he said to no one in particular. "Turns out shortcuts are just lots of little steps in a clever coat." Toby collected a few victories like that. He learned to jump from the last stair to the mat by the door. He learned the exact distance from coffee table to couch, too far, and from ottoman to chair, just right. He started to understand that air had texture. Sometimes it lifted him, sometimes it pushed back. He tried, he failed, he adjusted. It felt almost like speaking a new language with his whole body. But every time a bird rode the wind over the river, Toby's chest did the drawer thing again. Close wasn't the same as yes. One Saturday, Max and his mom took Toby to the beach. The ocean smelled like everything at once. Seagulls drew silver Ys in the sky and laughed rude gull laughs. Toby trotted toward the edge where the water kissed the sand and jumped back when a wave chased him, then jumped forward when it slid away. The game wrote its own rules as they played. A girl down the shore flew a bright red kite. It caught a gust and climbed until the string drew a straight line from her hand to the sun. Toby sat and stared. Max followed his gaze. Pretty cool, huh? Toby wagged slowly, thinking. The kite didn't flap either. It leaned. It trusted the wind and the hand. On the way home, Max's mom stopped at a little shop and came out with a thin package. In the living room, they opened it. A kite with a blue tail like a river. Project? Max's mom asked. Max grinned. Project. They took it to the park the next day. The first 5 tries were disasters. The kite jittered and darted and fell like a baby bird, deciding against being a bird. Toby chased it gleefully, beaming whenever it came down so he could bring it back. On the 6th try, the wind sighed in the right direction, and everything lined up. The lean, the pull, the trust. The kite rose. Toby ran beneath it, paws drumming the grass, eyes wide. He felt the wind push his ears back and lift his chest. For a moment, the shadow of the kite brushed over him like a blessing. "Look, Tobes," Max laughed, jogging with the string. "We're flying." "We're." The word had 2 wings. That night, Toby lay on the rug and dreamed of the blue tail writing his name across the sky. Over the next weeks, the dream turned into a plan. If a kite could do it with 1 string, maybe a dog could do it with 2 legs and 1 good idea. Toby built a list. 1, jump higher. 2, start from higher. 3, trust the wind. 4, don't tell Mom. He and Max visited Mrs. Alvarez on the 3rd floor, who kept plants on her balcony and patience in a bowl. She let them stand out there and feel the wind. Toby put his front paws on the railing and looked down at the little square of courtyard, the fig tree, the bike rack. His stomach did a small backflip. "Nope," Max said, reading his face. "We are not leaping from balconies." "Sorry, sir." Toby didn't argue. He was brave, not reckless. He kept looking for smaller skies. He found one on the school field's bleachers. Start on the 3rd step, jump to the grass, land with a trot and a grin, then the 4th step, then the 5th. He learned how to raise his front legs at the right moment, how to tuck, how to stretch, how to let the air carry the rest for a heartbeat. Queenie watched from the fence and nodded once. "See?" Smaller sky. Toby wagged. "Do you want to try?" "I fly in naps," she said, and went to sleep in a warm patch like a professional. Some afternoons, Mr. Rossi from the corner store took his lunch in the park and threw Toby a crust of bread shaped like Italy. "You'll never be a bird," Mr. Rossi said kindly. "But sometimes the car window is a good second place." Toby didn't know about cars yet. He only rode in the bike basket and the laundry basket, and once, in a cardboard box, he tore out of in 10 seconds flat. But a few days later, Max's mom offered a lift to the grocery store. Toby jumped into the back seat and discovered a very important truth. When the window was open a little, the world came in at once. Smells layered on smells, the pizza place, the bus exhaust, the rain coming tomorrow, the lake hiding behind the buildings, the squirrel he would not meet but would very much like to. He stuck his nose into the rushing air and felt the wind hold his face again. He closed his eyes, and yes, this was flying too. The day things changed, the sky was the color of a pause. Max came home quiet from school, eyes different. Soccer tryouts, he told his mom at dinner, moving his P's into a nervous constellation. I was too slow. You were brave for trying, she said. He shrugged. I want to be good. Toby crawled under the table and rested his head on Max's foot. He knew the shape of wanting to be good. He knew the sound a heart made when it hit a limit. He licked Max's ankle and got a small smile for his trouble. That weekend, Max didn't want the park. He wanted to sink. He sprawled on the couch, staring at his phone, scrolling past joy like it was too loud. Toby fetched the ball and dropped it on Max's chest. No luck. He nudged the leash off the hook and rattled it with his teeth. Nothing. He barked one sharp bark, then another. Max's mom looked over with a not-now face. Toby made one more attempt. He hopped onto the back of the couch, balanced, and launched himself over Max in a perfect leap that ended in a stumble, a whirl, and a thump onto the carpet. He popped up like a jack-in-the-box and wagged so hard his tail drew circles. Max laughed. It was small at first, then real, then relieved. Okay, show off, he said, scratching Toby's chest. Let's go. They met the wind at the field. Max put on his sneakers with the tight-lipped seriousness of a warrior and jogged to the end line. Toby ran beside him, ears up, legs a metronome. Max sprinted. Toby sprinted. Max slowed. Toby slowed. They became a pair moving through a space meant for games. On the second lap, Max's breath found a rhythm. On the third, his face softened into determination instead of punishment. He started doing drills, short sprints, quick turns, little jumps over an orange cone someone left behind. Toby copied him with dog logic and perfect cheer. When Max hopped over the cone, Toby flew it. When Max practiced quick feet, Toby did fast paw taps that looked like dancing. When Max paused, Toby leaned into his leg so they paused together. At the water fountain, Max dripped water into his hand for Toby to drink, then sat on the grass and said, I was too slow. Toby put a paw on Max's knee and looked up. But I can get faster, Max said after a second. Toby's tail answered for both of them. They did it again the next day and the next. Max started setting little goals. Run to the lamppost without stopping, cut left at the bench without slipping, 2 big jumps, then 3. Toby learned that practice had a taste, sweat and pride and something else, something like the first bite of an apple. On a breezy Saturday, the kite came back out. Max ran with Toby under the blue ribbon, the string humming softly like a secret. They moved as one, boy leaning into the pull, dog leaning into the joy. At the highest point, the kite wheeled and caught a sweet patch of wind. Toby jumped to follow its shadow and stayed above the earth for a heartbeat that lasted long enough. Look! Max shouted, laughing in a way that made strangers on benches look up and smile. He's flying! People clapped. Toby landed, surprised by applause, but not opposed to it. He barked a yes. That evening, Max and his mom spread a blanket on the roof. The building allowed it now and then when the sky promised good behavior. They watched planes trace quiet letters and the city blink on one window at a time. Are you ever going to sprout wings, buddy? Max asked. Toby rested his head on Max's knee and looked at the stars. He thought about Queenie's smaller sky, about Mr. Rossi's car window, about the bike basket and the beach and the way the kite shadow felt on his back. He thought about running with Max until both of them forgot to be anything but happy. Maybe flying wasn't leaving the ground. Maybe it was leaving something heavier. School tryouts came again. Max stood in line with a neat row of boys and girls, toes on the chalk. The coach blew a whistle. They ran. Toby wasn't allowed on the field, but he sat just outside the fence with Max's mom, vibrating gently with hope. Max's feet did what they had practiced. He didn't win the sprint, but he did his best version of fast. He turned sharp without falling. He jumped and landed and kept moving forward. When he glanced over at the fence, Toby wagged slow and sure, like a lighthouse. After, the coach posted a list. Max's finger found his name, and a grin opened like a door. They ran home, Max's shoes on, Toby's whole body a yes. At the apartment, Max peeled an orange, tossed Toby a tiny piece he didn't really want, and said, "We did it." Toby put his paws on Max's shoulders and put his face near Max's cheek, the way dogs say "me too." The next morning, a pigeon landed on the windowsill with the polite arrogance of pigeons. Toby and the bird looked at each other through the glass. Toby didn't bark. The bird didn't fly. "Do you still want to be me?" the pigeon seemed to say. Toby thought about it. Then he looked over at Max, who was tying his shoes for practice. He looked at the kite rolled up by the door. He looked at the leash, at the bike, at the world. He jumped down from the sill and trotted to the hallway. Max smiled. "Ready, Captain?" They glided through the morning, down the stairs, into the street, onto the bike. The wind picked up, and Toby stood with his paws on the basket rim, ears back, mouth open in a joy that had learned its shape. At the park, Max ran drills while Toby did his own set of dog athlete moves. A little girl watched and asked if Toby was a circus dog. Max said, "No, he's a flying dog." And Toby barked as if he understood perfectly. They finished by the river, where the air always felt like a new idea. Max tossed the ball high. Toby leapt. For a breath, he was where he always wanted to be. Not above the world exactly, but above doubt. The wind held him, and the light found him, and he landed like a promise kept. That night, he slept with his nose on the windowsill, not to envy the birds, but to wish them well. He still tried new skies, small ones, safe ones. He never jumped off anything that said, "Don't." He learned there were other kinds of flights. The first time Max's mom let the car window down all the way on the highway and the world poured in like music. The first train ride when they sat by the door and Toby felt the platform slide away while he stayed exactly where he was. The time they went hiking and reached a hilltop and the wind pushed against him warm and strong like a friend hugging from the front. When Max scored his first goal, Toby wasn't on the field, but he sprinted the fence line like a comet. After the game, Max crouched and hugged him, sweaty and proud. "We did this," he whispered into Toby's fur. Yes, Toby thought. We lifted. Years later, when people asked Max about the season he almost didn't try again, he told them about a small tan dog who chased a shadow and believed in the wind. He told them that flying is a word for when your heart is lighter than your feet. He told them that sometimes you borrow the sky for a second, and sometimes you build your own, little by little, with practice and friends. And if you ever see a boy running in a park next to a dog who leaps as if the air owes him a favor, you'll know. Not every flight needs wings. Some only need a leash, a laugh, and the courage to leave the ground for the length of one good breath.